our origin. So the human being is the capping stone of creation. In a very graphic way, the Holy Scripts explain how God took mud and created the human being. Mud, therefore, constitutes that part of the cosmic being that has to do with the essence, that is, with the cycle or level of essence. The whole course from that moment until the blow of the divine breath of God himself has to do with the place of origin of that particular being. On our planet, the raw material is clay. In other planets, maybe, the raw material is entirely different. In a few words, the form of life is born and bred differently on each planet. In the vast number of planets existing in the endless cosmos, similar or same forms are bound to happen, but at the same time, it is absolutely sure that there will be forms utterly different from anything we can imagine. The course of evolution starts this way and continues its own path during the time that follows. Eventually, the form is completed in such a way that it is ready for the second evolutionary step, the breath from the divine level. This breathing provides the individual life and gives the internal knowledge of the source of everything. That individual life has no other goal than to help the beings treading on an evolutionary path, a path that will highlight precisely this individuality and will progress to such an extent that the inner knowledge will gain a basis and will claim its position in the pantheon of creation. This last phase is the main characteristic of the human being condition. The breath's existence is what triggers in the cosmic forms the capabilities to think, feel, and exist as bodies. What we refer to when we say spirit, soul, and matter are pure products of the essential level and not part of the nature of the hyper-essence level. They are principles or virtues of essence, and because the authorities alone can only interact, 3 other intermediate states were created by their combinations. Spirit and soul create the mental state of being. Soul and matter create the aesthetic state, while the spirit and the matter create the etheric state. When we say state, we mean a different mode of action coming from the cooperation of the 2 principles. In this set of principles and states, a new state of the celestial cycle is projected, known as the divine spark. This state is the hyper-essence ego of the cosmic being. The man becomes septenary, 3 virtues, 3 states, and an ego, and from that moment begins the return of the hyper-essence ray back to its source. The cosmic being who would equate his personality as this ray will live forever because of the hyper-essence personality. The hyper-essence ego is a state of the hyper-essence level. When the essential basis ceases to function as a whole, their lower personality ceases to exist. Soil to soil and soul to soul. Where can we place the well-known to all of us fall in this concept? I would say that there are 2 creative acts, each of which would justify this title. The first is the one in which the absolute God gives birth to the hyper-essence and essence. In many initiatory schools, this is called intellectual creation. The second act is that in which hyper-essence invades in essence as a function, forcing it to start operating under the concept of the laws. This operation also has 2 phases, the creation of the spirit, the soul, and the material, and the second phase, which is the birth of the human condition. Let's call the entire second act cosmogony, what the sacred scripts in one way or another refer to as the fall. A huge why is hidden thought behind the whole process of creation. Why did this process start, and where does it lead? We must understand that from this cycle that we described straightforwardly, we can only understand one area. There is an infinite universe, an indeterminate number of celestial bodies. There is life, and there is a creature, the human condition, or else the cosmic being. In brief, there is world and cosmic beings. These are the only data on which we can rely and draw our conclusions. And since we do not have to reinvent the wheel, we accept some philosophical or metaphysical principles that seem to satisfy us. What do they satisfy? The internal knowledge, which is none other than the knowledge that carries the divine spark that sleeps deep in us. If I claimed I knew that why, you should, without a second thought, characterize me as too naive. The why can only be conceived as an idea, and someone may somehow try to explain the concept and put it in words. The conception can be, of course, of many errors. Many say they have conceived this first idea, but this is not enough. The idea must at least satisfy and interpret the human acts. This is the only way to convince us of the validity of the idea. Unfortunately, the acceptance comes at the end and not at the beginning. This, in many ways, can become fatal. The human being, therefore, seeks the source of life, which, with straightforward words, we would call the degree of consciousness.